Shandy Carib, refreshed for life.
Good morning, Grenada. It's your boy Troy, and of course, this morning we want to get straight into our workout to get you pumped and get you ready for today. We are here in St. George's, just over Sendell Tunnel, guys. All right, and this morning's workout is focused a little bit on more of your legs and a little bit of your core. All right, guys, so we want to get straight into it. So follow me as we go along. All right, you guys ready? So put your hands on your temple, you lift your knees up. Right, we're gonna alternate it, then we're gonna get some squats going. And like I always say with the squats, all right, you squat to where you can reach. For those of you who have bad joints, you have bad knees. All right, you guys ready? Let's go. So 1, squat, nice and easy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nice and easy. 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! Then we're gonna get into a state of what I call active rest. All right, guys, so we're gonna be doing 2 movements this morning. All right, so we're gonna get into the second movement. All right, guys, so this is what I call active rest. You're resting in and between workouts, but you're still, right, burning some calories, right, lifting those knees, moving those hands. All right, guys. All right, so second movement. You guys ready? Let's go. 1, squat, nice. 2, nice and easy. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! Good job, guys, if you were following. And like I said to you before, if you can't do the deep squat, all right, you can squat to where you can reach. All right, guys? Right. All right, so we're back into a state of active rest, right? We're trying to burn as much calories as possible and get a nice little sweat going. All right, guys, and like I always say, always take your sips of water in and between sets, right? Make sure that you stay hydrated. All right, so we're into our second round. You guys ready? All right, let's go. 1, squat. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Woo! Good job, guys, if you are following. And this is going to help to tone, right, your leg muscles. All right, guys? Squats are very effective for toning your legs, right? Your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, right? Getting your legs nice and toned, all right? And with that first movement, it also targets a little bit of your abs as well. All right, so we're back into a state of active rest, right? We're getting into the second workout in the second round. You guys ready? All right, let's go. 1, squat, nice and easy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! Good job, guys. If you were following, and remember to take your sips of water in and between sets, right? It's important to stay hydrated, guys. Really important. All right. So we're going into our third and final round of exercises, right? And like I said before, this is a very effective exercise that targets your legs and your abdominals as well, your abs. All right, guys, to get you nice and toned, right? And we're still in a state of active rest in and between sets. All right, guys, very effective, very simple, yet very effective workout. All right, guys, and like I said to you before, I just want to encourage you, right, to squat to where you can reach for those of you who have bad knees. All right, guys, so we're into our final round. You guys ready? Are you guys ready? All right, let's go. 1, squat, good. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! Good job, guys. If you're following, and now we are back into a state of active rest. All right, guys, remember, take your sips of water in and between sets as well. All right, so we're into the final exercise in the final round. I hope you guys have been following. All right, guys, you guys ready? All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, one more, 10. Woo! Good job, guys. If you're following, very simple, yet very effective exercise that you can do to get your legs nice and toned, right? Get them in shape, and it also targets your midsection as well. All right, guys, so we're gonna do a quick cool down just to get a little stretch going. All right, guys? Nice. So you spread your legs apart, nice and easy. Push your knees back. You reach down as far as you can go, down to the floor, nice and easy, to where you can reach. If you can touch the floor, even better. Woo! And back up. Then you stretch this way. You hold it. Nice. Back the other way. Stretch. Woo! Nice. Good job, guys. If you are following, and I want to encourage you to make water your #1 beverage. All right? Remember to stay hydrated. Drink as much water as you can. All right, guys? And I also want to encourage you to make healthy choices as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. See you again on Rise and Shine.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
With the news in detail, I'm Tony Julian. One financial institution is warning the public of fraudulent WhatsApp messages, which are currently in circulation, purporting to be a promotion by the institution. However, Republic Bank Grenada says that it's a phishing scam. Troy Gill has more in this report.
Republic Bank is warning the public against WhatsApp messages that are currently in circulation, which include the unauthorized use of the bank's logo and website, claiming to offer cash prizes after providing personal information. And according to an official release from the bank, they are urging the public to refrain from clicking on any links, replying to messages, or downloading any items surrounding this scam. ICT officer and cybersecurity advocate Jarvis Dabrio, speaking to MTV News on Monday, confirms that it is a phishing scam.
It is purporting to be coming from Republic Bank, where people, you click a few links and you are able to win, or you should win, up to 2,000 euros. The problem with that is the fact that it is a phishing scam. There is no money for anybody to win because the bank is not running any such promotion now. And that is based on feedback from their official Twitter page, from their official website, in addition to what they have put out in the press in other places.
Dabrio says there can be harmful consequences if one falls victim to such scams, especially to one's device. He said individuals must recognize that such promotions are fake.
My advice is, if you happen to click the link or you know anybody who did, you now need to scan your device to ensure that you did not infect it with some form of malware. Additionally, you would want to monitor the device over the next few days for any abnormal behavior. Because just as they changed the URL, so too, whatever the payload is, whatever is supposed to happen may have changed up as well. I think it's time that we recognize big companies do not run secret promotions.
He encourages individuals to verify the information beforehand.
Ask somebody. It doesn't hurt. Pick up the phone. I actually did that. Earlier, I picked up the phone, I called the bank to find out exactly what was going on, what's the status as far as them being aware of it and having done something and it did not take 10 minutes to just get it from the horse's mouth, as we normally say, that they're not running these sort of things.
Grenadians must be vigilant with regards to their online activities, Dabrio says, especially now with the Christmas season fast approaching. For MTV News, I am Troy Gill.
With the current COVID hindrance and the tourism sector being impacted, the team at the Grenada Tourism Authority, or GTA, spearheaded by CEO Petra Roach, is doing things a bit differently, with a heavy focus on getting visitors to market the country through first-hand experiences. This latest initiative by the GTA, dubbed the UK Tour Operator Marketplace, comes with a strategic compilation of tourist-based sites and attractions and is expected to increase Grenada's market share within the UK. But let's get more on this from Donella Hostin.
Through an initiative dubbed the UK Tour Operator Marketplace, a number of tour guide companies from the United Kingdom received the opportunity to experience some of Grenada's most interesting sites and attractions. Chairman of the GTA, Barry Collymore, during Monday's symposium, sang high praises to CEO Petra Roach, who he said worked assiduously with the team to get things going, even with budget cuts in place.
Petra is very results oriented, and she's really focused. And actually, this conference, we're here today because the board told Petra she couldn't do something. So the idea for this is really brought about because we were not doing a lot of spending on traveling because of how tight things are. But we thought, what a better way to do it. And she thought it was all Petra's idea that we would have this, this meeting and bringing people here. And I think actually it's the new model.
Collymore said this is an opportunity like no other for all stakeholders involved, both locally and abroad, and he believes that other countries will follow suit. According to CEO Petra Roach, this plan to actively engage the UK tour operators should increase Grenada's market share, as well as showcasing Grenada as the Caribbean's gatekeeper to the people's passion.
We know that customers are looking for new destinations to feed their passions. Fly and flop holidays are over. They want to grow, learn and discover. So we really want to showcase Grenada as the Caribbean gatekeeper to people's passions and provide the hidden ways to explore and experience what they love most. Today's traveller knows that good travel matters, and that's something that we see coming through all the time. People have gone through such a torrid time. They want to ensure that they're giving back. They want to ensure that they're being good, responsible global citizens.
So far, quite a number of top-tier UK media entities, travel writers and tour operators have visited the island. On Monday, the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, along with many other key players within the sector, received the opportunity to create links with UK tour operators. Marketing manager of the GTA, Nicoyan Roberts, said this is part of a strategy to get more external partners to work with Grenada. Reporting for MTV News, I am Donella Hostin.
Meanwhile, as of the 1st of November, Nicoyan Roberts of the Grenada Tourism Authority now wears two hats, nautical manager as well as marketing manager. During an interview with MTV earlier today, Roberts said that she was happy to be a part of this team, which she says has been working diligently to revise and develop the country's tourism sector. Here once again is Donella Hostin with the details.
Recently appointed Sales and Marketing Manager of the Grenada Tourism Association, Nicoyan Roberts, who also serves as the Nautical Development Manager, says she is excited about being part of this GTA team in her newest capacity.
It is my absolute pleasure. I'm really excited to have taken on this new responsibility for both departments, and I'm very thankful to our new CEO, Petra Roach, our Chairman, Board of Directors, and teams at the Ministry of Tourism, with whom we work very closely to develop the product and market and sell Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique to all of our global visitors.
Roberts says this comes at a time when they have recruited new marketing partners in both the United States and the United Kingdom, and they are working closely with the diaspora.
It is an exciting new time as we have onboarded new marketing representation and public relations firms in the USA and the United Kingdom, with a new manager for marketing and sales in the UK as well. Our teams are working assiduously with members of the diaspora, 360,000 strong, in delivering every piece of information that we can about how you can visit, whether you are non-Grenadian or a first, second, or third generation member of the diaspora.
She noted that her team will continue to connect with them through the GTA's many initiatives.
Some new initiatives which speak to volunteerism with different private sector partners, to our 473 Connect the Diaspora program, to many of the programs that you will engage with and form lasting relationships with our communities as we make travel and tourism better in this three-island beautiful country of ours, and take travel and tourism to the next level.
Reporting for MTV News, I am Donella Hostin.
A taxi operator has shared his concerns with MTV with what he says is double standards within the tourism system. As according to him, the Grenada Tourism Authority has indicated that due to vaccine hesitancy, tourists are not allowed to go to the beach. However, a company that offers the same service as taxi operators has disobeyed the authority's request. According to Oscar Bartholomew, he contacted that authority about the issue and is looking forward to the outcome, as we now hear from Rachel Bain.
A water taxi operator is questioning the Grenada Tourism Authority standing for taxi operators as the cruise season has restarted. He is calling for clarity as he says the restrictions placed on operators does not apply to everyone. Oscar Bartholomew says this has been plaguing him since Friday, when a water taxi operator transported tourists to a beach in the south of the island. According to the Grenada Tourism Authority, during a press conference last week, Tuesday, they have developed a plan to accommodate tourists, which is called a bubble. However, the beach is not included. Bartholomew explains his plight and what he thinks should be done.
They go from the ship, they go straight down to BBC. And then they start disembarking the passengers onto the beach. I understand, so the Ministry of Tourism, they said that, no beaches allowed, no tourists not allowed to be on the beach, disembark on the beach because of the bubble tours and the vaccinations, and they want all the passengers to be dealing with only vaccinated people.
He believes that operators are not being treated fairly.
It is double standard. The tourism know about this thing since it happened, and I guess as much as Minister of Tourism will hear, would know about it as well. Up to now, I don't know if they're still in the meeting or if they have a meeting for the whole day or so. They haven't come back and saying nobody haven't reached back to me, and yet for all they had other boats the following day, and Ramona was still picking up people, doing tours.
MTV spoke to owner of the Rum Runner, Andrew Bazinski, which brought tourists to the beach last week, who explains what happened.
On Friday last, after 18.5 months and having serviced our vessel, we encountered a mechanical problem, for which I have the bill here and here if you wish to see. We did not break any laws willingly. We did not loot or break anybody's place or thief. I made a judgment call in the interest of the safety of over 100 passengers and took the boat to a place where two things could happen. One, a mechanic could attend to it, which happened, or two, that I could do an evacuation by land if need be.
MTV also contacted the Grenada Tourism Authority and they indicated that they are aware of the situation. For MTV News, Rachel Bain.
Following a meeting with taxi operators, the Grenada Tourism Authority has said that there's a collaborative approach in going forward. The authority met with operators on Friday to discuss the challenges faced during this period. Speaking to MTV via telephone, Chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority, Barry Collymore, said that it was a fruitful meeting.
Things that we've identified is to find, we have agreed on a way to get them even more business. The main thing is that we had a good meeting. We had a positive meeting.
Collymore said they thrashed out the challenges and came up with a plan so all operators can benefit.
They will just be a little bit more organized and that kind of thing. One of the things that they will be doing is that, for instance, they're having their own desk so that people coming off the ship can book tours directly with them. We're going to continue. The GTA is going to support them with some new business initiatives that they want to launch, and I guess they will announce that at the time. And then when the time is right. In the meantime, we will work with everyone to ensure that everybody gets their fair share of business.
We turn now to students continuing to struggle with some subjects, especially with mathematics. Data from the Ministry of Education is showing that performance in mathematics declined by 8.5%. Now that would be from 43.56% back in the year 2020 to 34.98% in 2021. John L. Mitchell, a curriculum officer with responsibility for mathematics, now explains the importance of the subject in students' development.
There seems to be a disconnect with understanding and appreciating that mathematics, it is something that is all around us. It is something that we are deeply involved in on a daily basis, in our daily lives. So it's a matter of how can we marry what's happening in the classroom to what's happening in our daily lives. And that's where now we can go into speaking as to strategies or things that we can do as teachers, as parents, as ministry, as stakeholders.
Mitchell says mathematics is a very important factor in the school's curriculum and that each student must participate in the classes, whether in the classroom or at home. He spoke of the challenges faced in the school system in terms of numeracy.
Numeracy basically involves the understanding of simple or mathematical concepts and ideas that will basically guide us as we move along. Each day of our lives, and it doesn't matter who you are, we interact with math and mathematical ideas in one way or the other at our homes, at the supermarkets, in our daily work, in our whatsoever we do. It is something that is a part of our lives. Yeah. So it's a matter of just like how there's a lot of talk about literacy, being able to read. Numeracy has to do with basically being able to understand maths, its idea.
A social media campaign by the Child Protection Authority will be rolled out as soon as Child Month activities continue throughout November. Nikita Holston has more.
Under the theme Children Care and Education Matters, Let Children Grow, Glow and Flourish, Child Month is celebrated in November this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Several activities will take place according to Janelle Grant, Public Relations Officer of the Child Protection Authority.
The first campaign that we have is a social media campaign. For those of you who follow our pages, we are posting one electronic poster every day of the work week as it relates to helping parents and guardians care for children, to love the child, to help the child grow, glow, and flourish. The other activity that we're doing, as you can see them on the screen now, the other activity that we have in conjunction with the Ministry of Education are 2 Zoom sessions with parents speaking about how we can help children to grow, glow, and flourish at home. And in those sessions, we'll be speaking about practical ways in which we can help our children to enjoy home in a safe way.
Grant stresses on the importance of educating children on their rights and lists some of the tips the Child Protection Authority is putting out this month together with the Ministry of Education.
Remember, the theme says children's care and education matters. In terms of the education aspect of it, the Ministry of Education will take on as it relates to the school and different things like that. But from the Child Protection Authority point of view, we also want to stress the importance of educating children on their rights, right? There is a document called the Universal Rights of the Child, and we believe that each child should be aware of the information therein.
Another tip, according to Grant, is children understanding their role in the home, as the home is the first institution of education.
School is a learning house, yes, but before the child can learn anything in the school, they have to exist in their home. They have to socialize at home, learn how to speak, learn their manners and all those different things from the parents and those who they socialize with at home. So we're encouraging everyone, heads of household, to make home a learning environment, a positive learning environment.
Grant is reminding parents and guardians to treat children with respect because what they receive now can be what they give out in the future.
So kind words, kind actions impact them for the positive, and the same also obtains for the negative. So we have to make that effort to be kind. And I know sometimes, children may seem to be a bit challenging, and as the adults, we get upset and we say things in the heat of the moment that we wish we can take back. And many of the times we can't take it back, but we don't apologize either.
Nikita Hostin, MTV News.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
At us and also listen and following us on Magic FM. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm your host, Oslin Crosby, and today will not be any different as it relates to information sharing on today's program. We do have a very packed morning, so what we will do, we start off right away. We usually help you in the planning of your day with that of sharing the weather forecast, and this morning will be no different. We continue to remind you that we are still within the hurricane season. We officially conclude on the 30th of November, so we encourage all to please remain vigilant. Yes, we're still living within the pandemic. This multi-hazardous environment gives us an opportunity to always remind us of the importance of always being prepared. So we go over now to the Met Office, where we start off this morning's session, helping you plan as to what the weather will be like. Good morning.
Good morning to all listeners of MTV. Let's take a look at the weather for today, Tuesday, the 16th of November, 2021. Point Shelling, it is fair. The wind is variable at 3 miles per hour. The barometric pressure is 1012.2 millibars, which is below normal and rising. The present temperature, 26.3 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity, 80%. Yesterday's maximum temperature was 31.6 degrees Celsius, and the minimum last night, 24.8 degrees Celsius. Over the past 24 hours, we had 1.5 millimeters of rain. The total for the month so far, 14.2 millimeters. Now for the public forecast for Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique Valley for today and tonight. The weather is expected to be generally fair and breezy, becoming partly cloudy to occasionally cloudy with few brief to widely scattered showers. Today's maximum temperature should reach 31.5 degrees Celsius. Wind should be northeasterly to easterly at 15 to 25 miles per hour. Sea should be moderate to rough with waves 6 to 9 feet in northerly to northeasterly swells. The public should take note here that a marine advisory is in effect. Tide is currently falling, will be low at 11:30 a.m. and high at 3:55 p.m. Sunset today 5:40, sunrise tomorrow 6:05. To repeat the forecast, the weather is expected to be generally fair and breezy, becoming partly cloudy to occasionally cloudy with few brief to widely scattered showers. From the Morris Bishop International Airport, Jason Roberts reporting.
Thank you very much, Jason. And we heard the forecast there for today. We encourage all, please be prepared. It's going to be a bit windy, a bit overcast, but we should see some fair conditions. So let us plan accordingly. Today, we're moving straight on into what's happening for this morning. Who will we be speaking with today? Today, we will be speaking with the newly elected leader of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Dickon Mitchell. We would also be speaking with Head of Hospital Services. That will be our second guest for the morning. But at first, what we will do, we are going to get on into our discussion this morning with Mr. Mitchell. We know that he is pressed for time, and we are very grateful to have him with us this morning. Last week, we were speaking about the change in landscape, and we did promise that at some point we will have an opportunity to speak to him. And this morning is our time here on Rise and Shine. So we're going to go over now to Mr. Mitchell. Good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine. It's a pleasure having you on with us this morning.
Good morning, Oslin, and it's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be here with your listeners as well.
Yes, we do feel obliged. Now, a newcomer to politics, a successful professional, an attorney at law, you started from the bottom. And many would ask, why now and why politics?
Right. Why now? Because I feel personally and professionally I'm in a position to enter politics. I view politics as a career. And if one wants to engage in it, I think you have to be in a position where you can devote all of your time to it in very much the same way you would devote to any profession, journalism, law, being a nurse, a doctor. And I think that is important in order for us to raise the level of our politics. The truth is, if you examine the National Democratic Congress in recent times, the perhaps inability of some of our members to be in a position to dedicate all of their time on a professional basis to the tasks at hand might have hampered the growth, development, and the positive perception that the party needed to ensure that its membership and the wider Grenadian public gave it the opportunity to govern. So I certainly recognize that if I was going to enter into politics, it could not be a part-time or afterthought engagement, and it required, as I said, all of my time as a professional. And so that's the why no. But the real reason for entering, obviously, is a desire to serve and a desire to help improve the lives of Grenadians throughout the trial and state of Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. And I felt the National Democratic Congress, as an institution, represented the vehicle that would permit me to serve, given the fact that obviously you want to be in an institution that allows for growth. You want to be in an institution that it's merit-based, and you want to be in an institution where democracy is alive. And in keeping with its name, I think the fact that I am now the political leader of the National Democratic Congress is testimony to that fact, that the party is inclusive, it's welcoming, it's merit-based, and it's prepared, importantly, to give a new generation of Grenadians the opportunity to serve the public.
I want to go back to a comment you just made. Full-time service, being able to do this full-time. You have a track record of being thorough in your profession, a long line of success behind your name as an attorney. The transition now, you handing over that succession plan, handing over such a bright brand to somebody else. I know it is something that it had to be. It cannot just be a now decision. That had to have been in train for quite a while.
Yes, so, as part of the whole question of handing over and succession, my firm has a very, very talented pool of attorneys. There are 3 attorneys there, and they're backed by the very experienced staff that has been with me and been in the legal profession even before I became an attorney. So I was quite confident that my colleagues who would essentially be now tasked with running the firm would do a great job and would excel. And I just want to make that point that 2 of them are female attorneys, and it's reflective of the trend that more and more, in fact, the legal profession in particular is now dominated by females, and perhaps almost lopsidedly so. So I have the fullest confidence in them. They are very, very bright, hardworking. And again, in keeping with the fact that we have to give opportunities to those who come after us, I had no doubt that this was an opportune time to give them an opportunity to, in fact, take the firm in the direction that they would want to take it.
With all that the 2 questions that you answered to this morning, we're hearing planning, and we're hearing a very focused individual, one that shares a vision for tomorrow, very, very clear as to what it is that you want. Now I ask, now that you're leader of the National Democratic Congress, what is your first job as leader?
Well, the first job was obviously to show appreciation, and we're grateful for the fact that the membership of the National Democratic Congress chose to elect me as its political leader. And on my own behalf and behalf of the new executive, I think our first task, which we are well on our way, was to show the appreciation, show the gratitude to the membership of the party. The second immediate task was to ensure that we understand why we are members of the National Democratic Congress, that we understand that we need to unify the party. There's no doubt that there has been some history of this unity. We are well on our way to doing that. In fact, last Sunday, the party hosted a social where the new executive expressed its thanks to the outgoing executive, and crucially, stalwarts of the party, elders of the party, mentors of the party who had that function, they were invited as well, partly so that we could relax a little, interact with each other, get to know each other better. The party presented tokens of appreciation to the outgoing executive, to party stalwarts like Mrs. Joan Purcell, to persons who've supported the party over the years. So persons like former Minister of Finance and former party leader, Mr. Book. So we are well on our way to, as I've said to party members, showing some tender love and care to each other. We intend to take that process throughout the constituencies, so that, again, those party stalwarts, the elders, those who've labored long and hard for and on behalf of the organization, that they remembered that we pay tribute to them while they're alive, and not just while they've died. In fact, graciously, the family of the late George Brizan agreed to attend that function last Sunday. So we also presented a token of appreciation to his family, because oftentimes we forget the sacrifices that families make for and on behalf of those who offer to serve their nation. So unifying the party is on my agenda. I think we are on the way to doing that. And I said crucially, and that's a fact, the average age of the delegate who elected me political leader is probably older than me. So it's testimony to the fact that the older members of the party are in fact doing their part and are committed to ensuring that the party transitions into a position where the party remains strong, resilient, and can put itself in a position where it can offer itself to govern Grenada for the next 15 to 20 years.
Unification, it's a huge task, because we always hear it from managers, dealing with human beings is one of the most daunting that we can ever find. On the weekend, there was an article, from all indications, from a supporter, possibly of the NDC, on a stance that you should take as it relates to one of your recently elected executive members, Mr. Robinson. And we would love to hear your position on this, because if we speak in unification, and you also spoke to inclusion in past interviews, inclusion does not only involve the NDC, it will be everyone. And there's some sides of the coin that say Mr. Robinson's contribution is that of national service and not necessarily politically aligned. What say you?
Say this, the national, so when I talk about unification and the fact that we need to understand what we are about and what our goal is, we are not without fault. No one's perfect. And I certainly think any member of the NDC is not beyond reproach. We certainly should accept, particularly if we are offering ourselves for public service, that the public should be free to criticize us. What I certainly don't support is the vitriol and the personal attacks and the calls for retribution and the calls for vengeance that seems to permeate our society. And I'm making the point of our society because we need to unify our society. We need to appreciate, as I've said repeatedly, that we all are children of someone, brothers and sisters of others, parents of others. And we live in a Christian society. We all seeking redemption. And so for me, if someone is and they criticize, I think the question is, we take it as constructive criticism and we move on. So for me, a lot of these things are distractions that do not add to the construct of what it is we as a party are trying to do and what it is we as a nation need to do. So we really need to focus on that. And that's what I intend to do. I'm not going to be one focusing on the distractions or the 30-second soundbite just for soundbite's sake. At the end of the day, we need all hands on deck. The National Democratic Congress is not going to win the next election if we are not inclusive, if we are not prepared to reach out to members who might have been disaffected or to persons who were not interested in politics for one reason or the other. So it is our collective responsibility to demonstrate to them that we are an alternative that is serious, that has grown, that has matured, that has learned lessons of the past. And crucially, as Grenadians, that we wish to be positive in our approach. We wish to talk about the things we wish to achieve and how we will go about achieving them. We may have differences about how we should go about achieving them. And that's the differences we need to talk and dialogue about, not attack one another, spend time criticizing one another and spend time pretending that we are holier than thou, because we all fall short. And as I said, we all are ultimately seeking redemption.
Yes, we are. I do appreciate the whole positive disposition in moving into this position. So we spoke of unifying the team. Give us an idea as to what the composition of the team will be. We know that we have not heard anything as to what constituency you will be running in as yet. We know these are the announcements that will come, but just us being inquisitive, of course, and the composition of the team. A new executive, youthful blood, a lot, very, very nice mix. Experienced youth, also the elder involved in the process. What is the team that, what can we look forward to in the team that will be proposed to, that will be actually sold to the public come next election?
Right. So the team is going to have a mixture of new. Certainly we'll have some experience. We certainly intend to have a full complement of, as much as we can, of women, because we appreciate that women are crucial in our society. To a large extent, they head a lot of our households. They make the decisions that influence the direction in which our households go, and by extension, our country. There are a lot of successful, vibrant women across all age ranges. We certainly intend to be reaching out. And that's part of the engagement. I think we have to recognize that to some extent our population has become disaffected by politics. And when you become disaffected by politics and persons don't pay attention to the issues that happen in the society, it's a potentially dangerous phenomenon. And so the intention is to be able to present a team that is committed to public service, first and foremost, that is hardworking, dedicated, honest, and that is a true reflective balance of both the age ranges within our society and the gender split in our society.
Okay. If we're going to speak to this, and I'm happy that we speak here to the balance, the gender-based, and also the youth, I want us to move now to that of policy. We spoke to that of party, and now that you are in that position, your team, and so what are some of your plans in unifying your team? Let's speak now to policies, because you are preparing, and once you go into a race, everybody goes into a race to win. With your track record, we know that that would not be any different in that of politics. Employment, it is one of our challenges, or rather unemployment. And youth unemployment is a big one here. As we continue to go through, and you said it should be representation for all. We have a huge a demographic of 60%, 60+% here in Grenada that is youthful. What would be some of your interventions, plans as relates to resolving some of the issues that relates to our youth and employment? But not just employment, also that of production. And I think it is one of the crisis areas we have here in Grenada. While yes, we have a lot of young people that are qualified as it relates to that of production, qualification, production, we seem to be having quite a chronic crisis here in Grenada.
Well, I mean, it's a topic that we can spend all day on. But I think there are a couple of things that we can address. As I've said, I think the first issue we need to address is we have to make a proper assessment of what are the needs of the economy, and particularly employers, and then work backwards to see how we, in fact, retool our education system to fit that. Part of the reason why we have high rates of unemployment amongst the 18 to 24-year-old is because you essentially become an adult at 18. Responsibility is thrust upon you. And in many instances, if your parents were floating and taking care of you economically at 18, you now find yourself in a position where you are expected to begin that process. However, if our education system is churning out large numbers of persons who are not in a position to become entrepreneurs, who are not in a position to use their own creative talents, who are not in a position to be trained in, or who are not trained in skills which are immediately deployable. And I say skills which are immediately deployable because I think that's one of the areas where we can actually make an immediate impact. If as part of our formal education system, the skills training is broadened throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, it puts our youthful population in a position where even if they went into apprentices, they would be able to start earning income immediately. Well, we have significant shortages of skills in all aspects, in the construction industry, plumbing, refrigeration, a lot of those technical areas. We've got marinas. There's no part of our formal education system that teaches any skills related to the marine industry, for instance. So just a simple retooling of our education system to appreciate that between 18 and 24, or you become very vulnerable, will help to address that situation. Agriculture. And again, the requirement to be very dedicated in our approach to asking ourselves, what are the issues we need to address? Where do we have the labor shortages in agriculture? In issues such as research and development, agro-processing, preservation of our food, packaging of our food. again, if we retool our education system to address some of those issues, we will be able to address some of the high rates of unemployment. Crucially, the digitization of our economy and the digitization of our education could lead to immediate short-term and long-term gains in terms of reducing youth unemployment. And I've been on record as saying, for instance, as a small island, we should be committed as a nation to ensuring that we have internet penetration throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, 100%. That infrastructure development alone could transform the landscape, because once you have access to the internet, you have the ability, if trained properly, to earn a living. You know, there are significant jobs available on the internet that young persons can in fact pursue at earning capacities that are probably significantly higher than some of the traditional areas. So, for instance, I've gone on record to talk about the need to introduce and make coding, if not mandatory, at least give every young child in Grenada the opportunity to learn to code. And I'm saying this to say, if we simply started this, I'd say anyway between 12 to 16 within our secondary schools, by the time you get out of secondary school, 16 years old, and you perhaps do your national college or any other form of semi-tertiary education, you are probably in a position to start earning income immediately. And so, and I haven't gone on to talk about things like music, culture, etc. Again, if you can do music production, you know, a lot of us, you know, a lot of the big music producers start when they're 14, 15, 16, and there's a reason for that. When you're young, you tend to be creative, you are far more experimental, and you are far more likely to create a new song that persons are interested in and to become successful. And then we talk about intellectual property, the royalties that come from that. So there are a number of areas that I think traditionally we have not formally paid attention to, and that as a nation, we have not dedicated or put any resources into them, that in my view, those areas really do have the ability to dramatically reduce youth unemployment and to increase productivity. Because part of the challenge with low productivity is that if you're not motivated, if you're not doing something that you like or you find inspiring, you are really kind of going through the motion. You're there waiting for the end of the month or the end of the fortnight to come, you know, so yeah.
Happy that you spoke to this, because it brings to light another issue that we have, another chronic issue. And I want to use you as an example. Most of us came from humble beginnings. You rose, you built yourself from the bottom, and today we can speak of your success story. But today we also have to appreciate that we have a crisis with our young men, the people who would get to that far. Right now we have reduced participation in that of young men being involved in the formal or tertiary levels of education. They are staying away, and we need to figure out how it is that we can make this now education now back to the days where it is a necessity. We saw it as a necessity, but now it is seen now more of a convenience. How do we get our young men? Because there are huge implications as to where this can take us. Men are the leaders according to tradition. A man is the leader of the home. If our men are absent in our homes, then what happens? What happens to our children? It brings about societal ills. There are so many things that can come from it. And I want to hear from you. What are some of your programmatic interventions that you will be able to implement, or you can speak to, that can change this? We spoke to education reform. How can we challenge this and get a better outcome than what we have now?
So thank you. It's a very important and perhaps complex issue, but it's an issue that as a nation and as a wider region, because I don't think the issues in Grenada are limited to Grenada. I think the trend throughout the OECS and the region is clear to see. I think first we have to start with men, particularly adult men, leading by example. There is a need for a lot of mentoring. There's a need to recognize that a lot of men grew up in homes with no men. And so we too have to reach out and assist. Crucially, as a man, I would say this: if you grew up in a home with no discipline, your likelihood of being successful perhaps requires an on the road to Damascus experience. There is a high risk that if you grew up with no discipline, and if you are not told that there are consequences to actions, and that isn't reinforced, then your ability to grow, your ability to be successful is hindered. And in fact, I've seen an author who once said if he had to choose between love and discipline, for a young man, he would choose discipline, because ultimately the young man will later on realize that it is because you loved him that you ensured. And when I say discipline here, I don't mean the traditional form of violence and that sort of stuff where we beat our kids to get the message across. But I think the question of ensuring, for example, at an early stage that men are given chores, that they're given timelines, that they are given deadlines, that they appreciate that there are consequences. But crucially as well, you know, and particularly for our mothers, I think sometimes we pay attention to the girls. We ensure that we set the task for them. We ensure that they run school on time, and we cannot leave the young men to figure it out. Or he's a boy, so he needs to play more. He's a boy, so, you know, but we have to find the right balance between ensuring that our young men in particular are taught discipline. Crucially as well, I think we have to spend a lot of time re-socializing our young men to appreciate that the success of a woman does not threaten him. And in fact, the success of a woman complements him. And that is important because I think, you know, you may find a situation where men then disengage when they meet successful women. And we still have to deal with the underlying perception that some of our men still view women as less than them. And I think those kinds of attitudes, you know, last week I was speaking with a colleague and we were talking about the high prevalence of sexual related criminal offenses that we deal with year in, year out. And despite maybe tougher laws, more social intervention, it seems to be repeatedly happening. And the question is why? And, you know, his theory was when you examine a lot of the men who commit such crimes, excuse me, there's an underlying feeling that women are still property. That there is an underlying feeling that somehow there should be no consequences, no boundaries in terms of how you view women, particularly physically. And so an entire re-education, and perhaps, and this has to be done in a systematic and a prolonged period, has to take place. But certainly, you know, since I was in Presentation College, which is over 2 decades now, we've been hearing the conversation that men are increasingly in crisis. And I know at one time, you know, we had a Ministry of Women's Affairs, and then it was changed, I think, to Gender Affairs, perhaps to be more neutral. But I think we have to be, and there are obvious examples. The prison population is predominantly male and young. If we look at the folks who are walking on the streets who either are suffering from drug addiction or alcohol addiction, it is predominantly men. Men are more likely to be criminalized or become criminals than women. Men are more likely to get into fights, particularly violent fights, than women. So we have significant work to do socially. Our churches, I think, will play a crucial role. But it has to be a community, it has to be a village, and it has to be a nationwide approach. And I think some of us men who are able to need to set the example. And even if it's one man that you save, even if it's one young man you help go to university or go to national college or get a skill, then it's one person, I think, multiplied by 5 or 6, because he then becomes a contributing member of his society. He can then help his family, help his parents who would have sacrificed for him. So it's important, I think, for us to bear that in mind, individual men, that we in fact can make a difference by reaching out and helping any other young man that we may see in need of help, sometimes just in need of advice, just in need of someone to speak to. There have been recent suicides by men in our society. Again, we have to pay attention to mental health, men in particular, because sometimes we don't want to admit that we're in pain. We don't want to admit that we're suffering, but we must find avenues to ensure that can happen.
That response, I welcome this morning, hearing it from a man. It's very interesting. And I think it takes us now to the next question. And I don't want us to think the way we normally see culture. We see culture sometimes as just carnival or the festive part of culture. But we were taught in school that culture is the way and life of a people. Phyllis, what is your philosophical stance on investing in Grenada's cultural art form and linkages with national pride and development? Because whatever policies that we spoke to this morning, it will, one, create cultures, new cultures it can preserve. How do we preserve what we do have? And it can be tied back to speaking to unification and some of our older people passing on the things that we were taught as children that we may not have now. And I think once we do this, as it relates to our tomorrow, that we should be in a better place, because we will reap the benefits from the things that we're trying to change on a foundation level, so that we can one day reap the fruits.
So your comment that culture is a way of life, I think, sums it up. And from a value point of view, in terms of who we are as a people, they need to understand, teach, and pass on our culture is crucial. As much as there may be 5 to 7 billion people on the planet, the Grenadian culture is unique. The Grenadian culture is special. There's no other place on earth like Grenada. And so whether it's our festivities, whether it's the way we speak, whether it's our dramatic arts, whether it's our creative arts, we need to understand that. And first and foremost, teach that deliberately. I was in Snell last Friday, and I was having a conversation with some of the villagers, and we were talking about the fact that who teaches you to bend wire in Grenada to make a costume? Right? Who teaches you about Vekumas or Shotney? You know, and we really have to be grateful for those villages that have preserved our art forms. But outside of those villages, there is no national plan, and certainly no national implementation to ensure that all of Grenada understands our traditional culture, and why we do it, and how we do it, and how we preserve it, and how we pass it on to the next generation, right? And it is not just culture. If you learn to make costumes, you have a career. If you learn to play pan and tune pan and make a steel pan, you have a career. You know, so there is a direct link between our culture in all its forms, and economic growth and economic activity. And I think the fact that we fail to appreciate that explains why we don't invest in our culture. You know, we had no carnivals for the last 2 years, but that didn't mean we could not have said we will use the opportunity to introduce costume making in our industries, in our schools, right? I mean, we can talk about Peter Minshall from Trinidad, for example. Many of us don't know that Peter Minshall, a famous carnival costume designer in Trinidad, has designed costumes for the opening of the Olympic Games in Atlanta, right? When you have our talent from the Caribbean being able to operate on the grandest of stage because of their creative ability, it tells you why our culture, why our performing arts and so on are important. So, you know, music, you know, our Calypsonians and the contribution they've made to social development. When we didn't have Facebook and Instagram and all of those things, it's our Calypsonians who told the story. It's our Calypsonians who talked about topical issues of the day. We need to remember those things. We need to teach those things, and we need to encourage those things. So again, we have, I think, neglected to some extent who we are, and oftentimes that leads to a lack of pride in ourselves as a civilization. And we need to understand that it's your culture that makes you hold your head high. It is your culture that distinguishes you from other citizens of the world, and it crucially makes other citizens of the world interested in you. I think we could all understand that there's a Jamaican culture that is packaged and sold from a tourism point of view. Similarly, there should be a Grenadian culture that is packaged and sold from a Grenadian point of view. You know, you hear sushi and you hear Japanese. You hear karate and you may hear Japanese or North or South Korean. Those things matter. You hear athletics and you know the Jamaicans dominate. You hear long distance, you hear about the Kenyans. You know, so we need to understand the impact of culture and how oftentimes your culture is your biggest selling point. North American culture is its biggest selling point. People go to America to experience a North American culture, you know, and so I think we underestimate sometimes how powerful our culture is and why we need to preserve, enhance it, and deliberately sustain it. Because if we don't, in a small open society, then it becomes very easy for us to be overrun by the cultures of other more powerful neighbors. And then you wake up wondering what has happened to the Grenada that we once knew and cherished.
Yes, it's true. But I'm happy that we had an opportunity to show the connection between all the sectors that we always look and have questions on: the tourism, the economic impact, but also just defining who we are as a people and how it links all of that. It would be remiss of me if we don't ask on something as it relates to health. We are still living with it within a pandemic, and we continue to speak of it. But this morning, I don't want us to focus on the issues or the things that went wrong during the management of the pandemic. We know what they were. We have experienced them. But let us speak to how it is that we can build resilience from the experience we have had with that of COVID management. The experience we have had, we know what the issues are with our health system. We fall short there. We know that the management has many questions and many things that we could have done differently. But building resilience moving forward, because whenever these things happen, whenever these hazards affect us, I don't think it is not just the effect, but rather how we prepare for them better tomorrow. So I want us to speak to building resilience, programs that can help build resilience within this country so that we can better respond to these hazards when they do affect us.
So thank you. I think we can start with ourselves, because I've spent some time talking about the need for us to recommit to being healthy and to teaching that, because when I was very young, as a family, we oftentimes would go jogging at 5 in the morning. I have to tell you, as a young person, I didn't enjoy it. But a simple thing like that, from a family perspective, where it builds family unity, it builds team spirit. So they need to be healthy. They need to be active physically. And I think they need to be active physically is something that we need to almost institutionalize throughout our lives, because I think what happens is you go to school, you're quite active. You involve in sports, you run, you may play cricket, you may play football, you go to national college, and then you get a job. And perhaps the responsibilities of adulthood takes its toll, and then you completely give up on yourself. And then by the time you're 40, you're overweight. We have chronic lifestyle issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, and we go on and on and on. If we're going to build resilience, because I was always told by my biology teacher in Presentation College that the viruses need to live too. And if we do not take care of ourselves, that they're quite happy. That they're quite happy that we be their host. And so I think from a resilience point of view, the healthier we are, the more resilient we are, and the less likely that we would suffer, even if we get ill, that we would suffer the kind of mortality or serious issues that would arise from future pandemics or future outbreaks of disease. So I think that's one area that we need to start. And there are ways we could do to help that. We need to re-engage in ensuring that we have a lot of community sporting groups, whether it's netball, whether it's football, whether it's cricket, or even some of the non-traditional sports, tennis, for instance. Because I think truly, if we do that, because again, if you left school and you want to keep playing sport, if there isn't a community and organized community sporting groups and so on, how do you do it? You probably have to call one or two of your friends, and if one drops out, the motivation and so on. So I guess, again, being more organized at a community level, I think will help us in that way, because then if you're from Vincent's, you can join the Vincent's Football Club, the Vincent's Cricket Club, the Vincent's Netball Club, etc. And again, it allows us to bond as old, young persons to keep that community spirit alive. And so I've spent a lot of time talking about the need for us to deliberately ensure that at a village and a community level, that we re-spark, reorganize, and begin to reintroduce our community sporting groups. That's just one level. But I think we also have to be very rational in terms of how we allocate our resources to healthcare. And I've talked about, in my view, the need to decentralize our healthcare system. And I think to me, it makes obvious sense. So for instance, if we had put resources into medical and health centers at a community level, it might have permitted us to then say the general hospital during a COVID-19 period will treat only with COVID-19, because we have the regional facilities that can treat with the other types of routine health issues that our citizens would face. Again, if we recognize that you're in the midst of a pandemic, the question might have been asked, should we not and can we not still dedicate resources to ensuring that we increase the number of ICU beds that we have? Because we recognize that with worldwide travel set to resume and more of it, we may in fact face future outbreaks, and we need to be in a position where in fact we can in fact accommodate more persons in our IC unit, and deliberately put the money there. But I think there are also more creative aspects of the health industry that we need to look at. We certainly should be seeing how we can explore and exploit the presence of St. George's University on island and see what further linkages that we can make. I know there are Grenadians within the diaspora who've always thought about investing back in the health industry in Grenada. That is directly linked, I think, for us to be able to get tourists who are high net worth, because when you come to an island to visit, and if you want to do extended visits, you want to ensure that if something went wrong with you, that the health services can take care of you. And again, so there's a direct link between the things we promote as overt economic activity like tourism and ensuring that our health systems and or ability to deliver appropriate health services are at least an acceptable level that will encourage more and more tourists to visit. And crucially, as citizens of Grenada, we deserve and are entitled to a proper healthcare system. So I think those are just some of the things that we need to explore. And I certainly think, as I've said, we spend a lot, Grenadians spend a significant amount of money for healthcare outside of Grenada. Millions and millions of dollars. It's no secret that many Grenadians, women in particular, travel to the US because they're scared that if they stay in Grenada to have their child, that something may go wrong and we may not be in a position to correct. So that's millions of dollars in tourist money in health services that we give to the US every year. I'm sure if the confidence was there in our health system, that would not be happening, right? So that's just an example, I think, of some of the things we need to address.
Okay, I welcome your position on this. As we speak to COVID, I must ask this question. I heard your response to a question on Sunday, that interview with the journalist in St. Vincent, on the extension of the Emergency Powers Act to May of next year, May 2022. And justified reason for your response to it, that you don't think, being very critical of it, that it was necessary as the emergency no longer exists. It is a trend that we see happening now throughout the region. Almost all our new leaders in St. Lucia, in the Bahamas had their last day of curfew and lockdowns on Sunday. And I beg to ask, why do we continue? Do you think now that the pandemic is not yet over? It continues. I believe that, yes, we still have the parameters where emergency decisions can be made. But are we not seeing something that maybe those who have gone through it is seeing? And if that's the case, what is your stance on the vaccine mandate? The US, for example, now you must be vaccinated to go to the US. So while, yes, restrictions are being removed, we recognize that the mandate on vaccination is stepping forward. What is your position on the vaccine mandate?
So as I said, I think we have to face two issues. We have to face the reality that we're part of the global world, and in a small open island where we travel significantly out as well and people travel significantly in, there are some issues that we simply have no control over, and in fact, perhaps no power to even influence. So for example, with the US imposing a vaccine mandate for non-citizens to enter the US, with airlines requiring you to be vaccinated in order for you to travel, the reality is we are facing a situation where we have to operate within that environment. So almost the choice, so to speak, is not ours. That's on an international level and our interaction there. On a domestic level, yes, the choice is ours. And as I've said, the question of whether or not there ought to be a vaccine mandate, in my view, if we got to that point, ought to have been done after deep and extensive consultations with our citizens. And if the consensus was that our citizens were prepared to accept a vaccine mandate, then in my view, it would have been easy and quite clear that in that case, it's not even an imposition, but a consensus, having consulted with your citizens. The challenge we face is that the horse has already bolted, and we have a very ad hoc situation where, in my view, the governments, and it's not just Grenada's government, I think the governments throughout the region did not articulate a very clear position as to how they intended to roll out the use of vaccines and a mandate or not. So what it led to is a situation where, to some extent, it was the wild, wild west, and persons were left to make decisions on their own. So employers, for instance, had to, on their own, with no, in my view, guidance from the state, say, well, I am going to say to all my employees, I need to be vaccinated. But there was no guidance from the state. So you end up in a situation where, to some extent, it's almost reflective of the current situation, if you want to put it between the US and Grenada. If the US imposes a vaccine mandate for you to travel to the US, you have no choice. Where an employer says, because I've had no guidance, the state has not clearly articulated its position, I don't have to make a decision as to what I see is in the best interest of the business, of the employers and the employees and my customers, I'm imposing a vaccine mandate. It does leave a situation where you're pitting, to some extent, the powerful against the less powerful. And then it leads to the divisions and the divisiveness that we've had. So although the horse has bolted, it is never too late to speak. It is never too late to consult. Unless I missed it, I have not heard, for instance, that there has been a sit down with the Trades Unions Council, the trade unions, the Employers Federation, the Chamber of Commerce, and the government to say, we appreciate this is a hard and difficult task. How can we ease the tension, ease the anxiety, ease the frustrations, and engage in meaningful dialogue that we can at least come up with some kind of consensus position? I've not heard that. And that's one of the things that I've said as leader of the National Democratic Congress, I intend to do in terms of reaching out to all of the stakeholders so that we understand that it is an unprecedented situation. It is difficult, but we should be doing everything to minimize marginalizing people. We should be doing everything to minimize persons not being employed. And because I've made this point, you know, if an employee says, fine, I will not be vaccinated, and even if they get the severance, how long will the severance last? Right? And we have to talk about sustainability. So there's no point in getting 6 months' wages and then you're on the breadline 6 months from now. And that is why I'm saying the conversations and the discussions in my view ought to have happened. But I've made it clear, you know, even when people are on their deathbed in the hospital and the doctor wants to give them medicine, they're in a position to say, I don't want it. You know, so for me, I've always made it clear that I don't think someone should be forced to take medicine against their conscience. I appreciate though that this is a pandemic and you have to appreciate the high risk you may pose to others if you're infected. But really and truly, given the difficulty and the existential nature of a pandemic, given the fact that so many of Grenadians lost their lives to it, really they need to consult and to have the dialogue so that at least at the end of the day, if we disagree, and even if a mandate was imposed, that those who find themselves perhaps on the wrong side of that mandate would have had the opportunity to engage in the discussions, to share and to explain where they were coming from, what their anxieties were, their reasons for being reluctant or vaccine hesitant. And unfortunately, that has not happened. And I think it's not just Grenada. I think most of the islands in the region and perhaps the world, it has not happened. And it has led to some of the divisiveness and the corrosiveness that we've seen and the divisions.
I agree with that comment as it relates to the vaccine, the mandate, and the hesitancy, or rather people just choosing not to take the vaccine. I know I've taken some 20 plus minutes out of your time when you did tell me that you do have to run. I appreciate you being here with us. Just one last question. We did not get to touch agriculture nor climate change or the other areas, but I'm sure I will have another opportunity.
In the future.
Yes, I have looked in your conversation. But before you leave, from your plans, now you are into politics. What would you say you would like to leave behind? Because I recognize you have been following politics for quite a while. And if we are going to go back, tracking some 40 plus years of politics in the region or here in Grenada, what would be your legacy? What would you like to be your legacy at the end of your journey in politics? Because you are on a new path. You have moved from the professional, the attorney at law, and we know that some of it you will be carrying over to that on this new journey. But at the end of the day, what do you want to be your legacy at the end of your journey in politics?
That's a very interesting question, and you're the first one to pose it. So you're giving me some time for thought, and this may be an initial reaction, but it's something that I clearly would need to reflect on as well. I think for me, if having taken part in politics, I leave, and when I do leave, that the citizens of Grenada are continuously, actively engaged in nation building, whether it's at the youth group level, the community level, the sport group level, the constituency level, or on a national level. If significantly more of us continuously engage in that process, then that is a legacy I would be happy with. And I say this because I firmly believe that the times when Grenada has made significant transformative changes in its history is when its citizens were engaged. And to me, that is what leadership is about. The ability to inspire, motivate, and empower your citizens to genuinely believe that collectively we make the difference. Not a bad difference, a positive difference, an improved difference in our collective lives. And I think once you can unleash the creative power of your citizens and keep them inspired and keep them motivated, then that is certainly a legacy I think that is worthy to have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mitchell. It was a pleasure speaking with you this morning. I was looking forward to this one, and I I am not definitely not disappointed by this morning's exchange. We wish you the very best as you continue. And I know I did not get an opportunity to congratulate you on your new appointment. So congratulations and the very best we wish you. We look forward to see your sharing, your exchanges, because we know eventually you will be getting to the House where you have an opportunity to make the transition from the court to now the Houses of Parliament and the exchanges. The elections, I think the next elections will be very interesting, and we are all looking forward to it. The very best we wish you, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I certainly enjoyed the discourse. And I want to wish you and the audience a pleasant Tuesday. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, sir.
So we were speaking there with the recently elected leader of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Dickon Mitchell. We did have an opportunity this morning to hear a lot more on his plans to unify the party and also policies moving forward, as he now has an opportunity to sell his plans and programs to the electorate. As we move now, come 2022, elections will be constitutionally due in 2023. So we know that that time when our policymakers have an opportunity to engage the electorate will be moving into high gear. What happens in the next election will be dependent on the people. The masses rule, the majority rule in this case, and we wait to hear. I am anxiously waiting to hear what are the plans and programs that everybody's coming with, as that is what I think it will go down to. It will be a campaign of information, sharing your plans and programs to be able to arrest, in some cases, the issues that we are affected with daily here on Island, and where we will be able to maximize the many opportunities that are available to us are there. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have our second guest, and we have an opportunity to speak to Dr. Carol McIntosh on a new donation that our health care received, our Ministry of Health received recently. We'll be back in just a moment.
We support you at every stage of your life.
For business,
For your education.
for your financial freedom.
For that new ride.
Upgrade your life with the Communal. Contact us today.
The Christmas holiday season is weeks away, and MTV, along with Magic FM, is providing advertising rates, programs, and special deals for businesses. Let us help you boost your products, services, and Christmas specials. Don't have an advert? Don't stress. We can create it for you. Contact MTV Marketing Department for details and book it on 440-8171, 405-5718 or mtvmarketinggd@gmail.com. Book early and bring cheer to families for Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.
We plan for every major life event, from birthday parties to baptisms. And celebrating a life well lived deserves the same thoughtful planning. Beacon's Rest Easy plan is designed to give your loved ones the comfort of knowing that they can do just that. With no underwriting and cover for up to 6 family members that includes certain injuries, this plan can be yours for as little as 75 cents per day. Call us at Beacon or log on to beacon.co.tt for more info today.
Rise and shine.
Welcome back. So just in case you're just joining us, our first guest this morning was the recently elected leader of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Dickon Mitchell. Now we speak with the Director of Hospital Services, Dr. Carol McIntosh. And this morning, it's an important discussion, as we did get recently some much needed donation. Very, very, very important piece of equipment. But this morning, we want to hear more about that donation and what it would mean for us. Dr. McIntosh, good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine.
Thank you and good morning. It's a pleasure, truly a pleasure.
Speak about the donation. What was donated?
Okay, so the donor is the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, and they're based in Barbados, and their co-founders, Mr. Christopher Holder. And I say this because it's a story, it's a journey to get to this point and an ongoing journey. But this is one of many donations that the Maria Holder Memorial Trust has given to Grenada. We are blessed to be under their guide through a local Grenadian who is a cheerleader and a supporter of Grenada, Dr. Marion Pierre. But what this donation is this time was a 128 slice GE Revolution Evo CT scanner. And I say that in that format and for people to start to understand what this means, because we have various slices, and the slices tell us how specific a CT scan can provide the images. So this is 128. The next ones are 256 and 512. 512 is in work under research. 256 are a few institutions in the United States. 128 is the latest. We presently have on site 264 slices at two of our private institutions here in Grenada. And so this one now, this donation is a game changer and is greatly appreciated because it's one of three in the region that is now here for us to be able to provide services.
How will this now change or help us to better serve the Grenadian people with our healthcare needs?
Okay, so before I talk about how it helped us to change, I'd like to talk about how we got to this point, because that will tell you how it helped us to change. So again, I came as Director of Hospital Services in 2018, and working with Minister Steele, a variety of different ones, constant discussion about what can we do to improve the healthcare here in Grenada. And one of the things that was always talking about was for us to get a CT scanner on site at the General Hospital. Like I said, we do have two prior CT scanners, but it's not on site. And there are certain illnesses, such as a stroke, that within the first 3 hours, you have a 3-hour window to start to do care, but you need a CT scan. So if this person comes in or presents at the hospital, you have to contact institutions to make sure that you get access to getting the CT scan. And sometimes, and there's a cost to it, and sometimes people may or may not be able to afford the cost. And so it was limited in the amount of people that can actually get it. And then also having it on site would make it much more an emergency situation, because of course the hospitals are open 24/7. So this service is immediately available when necessary. So that was one as we were having the discussions. I would say in April 2019, and I like to say this because we must know our history. In April 2019, Mr. Christopher Holder, who is the co-founder for the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, was visiting Grenada. And he came to tour the General Hospital to see some of his equipment that had been donated, specifically one with the giraffe incubators that were being used for our newly to open NICU. On the tour was myself, of course, Minister Steele, Dr. Donna Clark, Mrs. Donna Clark, rather, project manager, Dr. Marion Pierre, Dr. Nilo Alvarez Toledo, consultant neurosurgeon at the time. And we went walking and he talked to people there, and people were talking about, specifically one that was a stroke victim, about the need for a CT scanner on site, because he said it took him a while for him to get the CT scan and then come back to the hospital where he had very good care. At this point, Mr. Holder stopped and said, well, what is critically needed? And of course, Mr. Steele said we need a CT scanner. And we went further and started discussing, well, what type? What else do you need? And that was the discussion that we had with him about the type of CT scanner sort of services that would be handled. And that's when he put us into putting in the application for it. And working under the guidance of then Permanent Secretary Pauline Peters and Mr. Sylvester, myself and Dr. Toledo, working tirelessly for about a week or so to start putting the application together. And that was then submitted into the Maria Holden Memorial Trust, went through the educating committee, and then was approved by the Board of Trustees. And that started the process when we received a 128 slice. Now we had put it in, gave them all the different things, and based on what they saw and what they saw we had, they said, let us go for the state of the art. And so we were very blessed in that. And that in that doing so opens up for Grenada the opportunities to be able to do one, staging for patients who have cancer. So normally if you have certain types of cancer, you may need to have surgery before you have the staging. This one will allow for us to do staging. With the advanced training for our radiologists, then it would allow us to also do some cardiovascular services to be able to be aware of the coronary arteries if they are blocked. It also allows us to do further tests in musculoskeletal that have not been able to be done before. And of course, the usual with the brain injury, stroke, et cetera, tumors, it allows for us to have excellent, detailed, efficient services. Not only that it's here, but because of its capability, be able to have the discussions with radiologists or doctors overseas so that this would advance our care. And it allows for those, because people would say they would come in for a CT scan, inability to pay, or not having the resources to be able to get the type that they needed and need to go overseas. And some of us just don't have that ability. So it's a game changer. It brings it back home. This is what it does. It expands what is it that we're able to do for the people here in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. But again, because it does so much, it takes that time to get to it, to bring it up and to put it into service. And I say that because remember, you heard 2019, we were approved back in October. And then we had 2019. And then it was the process of getting the purchasing of it. And then COVID hit, and that delayed for us to get in. Finally, it was delivered to us in November 2020. And then stored at the hospital under the authorization, it had to be authorized and approved by GE, stored at the hospital in locked, sterile, perfectly made for it until October of 2021, when we completed the construction of the rooms that it was going to go into. And that construction of the rooms was in phase 2, or is in phase 2. And that was under the guide. Again, GE sent down, these are the specifics that we need. And literally the specifics, the leading, et cetera, all of this had to be in place before we're even saying that they would allow us to start the installation. And I'm saying start the installation, which is what we're doing. And so the starting of the installation, it's the rigging of bringing, and this is 7,000 pounds is just one part of the machine. One part is 7,000 pounds. So you can imagine the amount of stuff. This 2 tons is the battery to keep the machine going if there's a power outage. That's the UPS, the Universal Power Protector, or the Power Surge Protector. So all of this intricate design, we have 2 engineers that came in from Global Medica to work on the installation, working with our biomedical team and working with our contractor electrical engineer. And this is a 2-week process just for the installation, just for the installation. And then the next part, go ahead.
Next part is, we know that now we have installation. I was about to ask you, we spoke all about the equipment. It was a long process, COVID delayed it. And then now we know that an important part is that of the human resource, the capacity to now operate it. Because then we know that that is where the specialized service is what you would need now to be able to offer that service. People who have to operate this machine.
Exactly, you're right on point. So we first have the installation and training of our biomedical team to manage for the installation. And then the next one is the training. And it's the training with the radiographer, the training with the radiologist who's overseeing, and also the clinicians as well. And that one is an online training that's initial to just have the understanding of a CT scan. People may say, well, you have CT scans on island. Shouldn't it be the same? No, it's not. Because of the fact, when I say 128, remember we had a 64 slice, this is increased in the imaging process. And with the increase in the imaging process, that also brings up the additional services that are available and how do you manage this? So you can get 128 slices, 128 images of one organ. You now need the radiologist and the clinician to sit there and say, well, which image is most important? How do we delineate it? How do we define it? How do we explain what this is doing? So once we have that, then you have the training online and then on site. GE sends in their trainer to show the services that are available and how do you apply these services. And then after that, again, you want to make sure you have all of those people that are very much ready. Dr. Fleury is our yeoman radiologist, a consultant radiologist, but of course needs additional people to assist him because it's not only a CT scan, you still have X-ray and ultrasound and all these other radiology services that need to be offered. And making sure that people are aware of, the physicians who are ordering it understand what it is that they need to order. So that's the process that would be necessary before you can say, yes, we are ready to provide CT scan services at the hospital.
I want us to emphasize on this because it is, and as you have been sharing, the phases as to when we get to that final phase of people being able to access the service. We know that we would need to manage people's expectations here. Whenever we speak of a donation, it's here, then we know that people would expect to be able to access it right away. But this one is a process, and we would like the public's cooperation and understanding in this case. We are still at installation, we still have training, we have capacity to build before we get to that stage. What is a proposed timeline to actually accessing the service here in Grenada?
It would be the first part of 2022.
Okay. Dr. McIntosh.
We say one thing and then we have the COVID surge. I mean, we need to be conscious of this is very fluid. And this is something where we want to make sure that we are ready, that people are safe and able to travel, all of those things in place before we can say.
So this is a much needed and welcomed addition. The next question would be, to every time we know that we have achieved one goal, then we know that we would move on to the other. What is the next in line now, as it relates to, as you said, Minister Steele was asking you, what can we do to add to Grenada's health services or health sector, the services offered at the hospital? What would be the next milestone?
Well, again, as you know, I'm hospital services, so I deal with the auxiliary, ancillary, deal with the cobble and brimstone in a sense. If you're talking with us and talking with our medical director as well to oversee what the services are, we are bringing in the dialysis services. That again is something that's coming in and working in conjunction to make sure we can improve services for our patients that are in need of dialysis. We also have, as I said, we have the NICU, which was built, but then had to be used for our COVID patients, isolation ward, when we had the major surge. And so that is one where we're looking at, can we now start to switch over to bring that service into place? So it is an expansion, but recognizing that human resources, that's one of our limitations in that. So it's an expansion as we can with the services that we have to be able to address what is going on. COVID pointed out to us that we need to be able to address respiratory, and we were able to. I commend our nursing and medical staff and our auxiliary staff for being able to provide services for such a disease that hit respiratory. And we were able to move up to that, to expand to that point, to have the ventilators and be able to manage. You have your everyday, like we have diabetes and hypertension, which is not going away. So we want to say, but to support and improve our preventative care and especially our primary care in the community to make sure that people start to control their diseases because that will help them to stay well. And I just want to say that, the services that we're offering, but we also want to understand that this is not just the service that we're offering, but this is Grenada's own. Grenada needs to own it. The people of Grenada, this is what is being placed here. So I'm an OBGYN by training, so I always go back to, you start off with you're pregnant. Wow, I'm pregnant and I'm gonna have a baby. It's a couple, it's a family. You have to nurture that pregnancy. Then it's delivered, and then you have to raise the child. So there's so many different parts. It's not just about, I'm pregnant and that's it. And in that process, there's so many people that are involved with it that you own it. I mean, you have the obstetrician, you have the pediatrician, you have all of us that are working with you, but it's ultimately that person who is pregnant. So it's Grenada, this is yours. The services that are here is to help us to become a more improved, a more safe country, a more healthy country, a healthier country. But it's also to be able to provide services to those who are not able to have access to the services. And so for us to do that, we are our brother's keeper. And for us to be able to do that is to see how do we support this and sustain it. And the sustainability comes not only from within the institution, but from the people who come for the services, recognizing the fact this is not a free service. I mean, it's a 6-figure cost of what this is. And we still have to maintain, and the servicing of it is still coming out. And so how do we make sure that we sustain this? And the sustainability does not come freely. And how do we make sure we sustain this so that people who are able to support it financially, do so, recognizing that as you support it, you also help that person who cannot afford, or that child that's not able to provide the resources to be able to do so. And that is something, is why we say we own it. We are a family. We are our brother's keeper or our sister's keeper. And so therefore, when you hear, oh, that's a cost, yes, it is a cost. But I know that this is going to help me to make sure I alleviate the next cost. It will help me to perhaps, with the staging for cancer early on, I'm able to know, then I can get the next services, which we have. We have the oncology services. So we'll be able to talk about the chemotherapy clearly about what's needed, as opposed to saying, well, we have to send you across somewhere and come back. If it's like, again, with this stroke, right off the bat, we'll be able to assist. And then our medical teams who are outstanding will be able to help and maintain and help you manage through this stroke. And with the advanced training that GE offers as well, cardiovascular, that's another step that we have just started to venture into with having a cardiologist on site. But then to talk about, are we able to determine who needs stents, determine what do you need a bypass surgery, not necessarily done here, but to be able to say we can send this person out. So it opens it up for all of us. It evens out a little bit the playing field for those who have and can travel and get this, and for those who have not.
Is it our hope to one day be able to offer the service to people on the outside? We might just be able to engage into some health tourism?
Beautiful. So that is one with the Maria Holden Memorial Trust. They note that because the application asks, well, who is going to be using this? Of course, our 100,000 persons here in Grenada, but then we have the tourists that come in, 160,000 annually when it was at the height before COVID. And hopefully we will reach back up to that point. And they may very well say, well, shoot, I'm here, beautiful. I can relax here for a couple of weeks and take the stress, because I was supposed to get my CT scan while I was back in the States or in England. But I can get it here and still feel okay, bring my records back, and just have the pleasantness of peacefulness as I'm going through whatever health illness. So yes, I always say we start to see ourselves there. We need to stay first focused and planted in what we need now. But you're right, visionary. You have to be a visionary of seeing what else can we do. And yes, most definitely, I see medical tourism as something that can be in the future.
All right. Dr. McIntosh, we are quickly running out of time. It's just about close to 9 o'clock, but we do appreciate you coming on this morning to share on this new donation that we have received and how it can benefit our healthcare system. Before you run off, any parting words? We know that you will be back again as you continue to you continue that plan to see how we can day by day improve our health services on island.
Yes, I just first want to say thank you for that, to allowing us to be able to talk with the public and for the public to be aware. I want to just again say thank you to the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, who has done this and so many other things for Grenada in providing their donations and being able to be a part of this journey with our medical director, with our ministers of health, both Minister Thomas and Minister Steele, and our permanent secretaries, and all of us here within the health field. It is something where we're excited. It is exciting. And also for people to be aware to stay healthy. Please wear your mask, sanitize your hands, social distance, because COVID has not gone anywhere. We want to make sure we stay healthy so that we can continue to fight and prevent any of the illnesses that would come across.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. McIntosh. It was a pleasure speaking with you. We say thank you for your continued service in providing that care, that health care, very, very important. We all want, when our family members or even ourselves may not be feeling well, that we can come to a place where we know for sure that we will get better. And I think we have many people who have gone through this pandemic, contracting the virus, that today are grateful for the tireless service of our health personnel, our health professionals, be it on the administrative or our face-to-face or frontline workers who go out there every day and give their service. We do appreciate and we say thank you for your continued dedication to that of public service here in Grenada.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a blessed day.
And you're most welcome. That was Dr. Kyle McIntosh, Director of Hospital Services, speaking to us today about a recent donation by the Maria Holder Foundation in that of a CT scanner, but detailing the phases as to when we would have access to the service. It was donated. The room had to be properly, of course, outfitted to be able to accommodate that equipment. Now we are going through the phase of installation, then we have to go through the phase of training, getting people to operate the facility, and then we'll get to access at least by the first half of 2022. That's a date, or rather that's a timeline set forth by our health professionals, the administrators in the hospital Ministry of Health, so that we as Grenadians, ordinary Grenadians, can access that service. So we wait to see, and as we asked Dr. McIntosh what would be the next milestone, there are so many things that are planned, and we await, of course, the delivery of these things. We know that they will take time. In some cases, COVID has pushed back everybody's timelines and deadlines, but they don't change. It does not change the overall goal of ensuring that we can improve healthcare here in Grenada. So that's it. It's now 8:52 in the morning. It's almost 9 o'clock. We took almost an extra half hour, but it was worth it. It was worth it this morning, the information. We do hope that you enjoyed this morning's program. Before we conclude, just to share the results from the draws conducted on Monday, 15th November by the National Lotteries Authority. The winning number for the Playway Midday Draw was 14, the symbol Old Woman. The winning number for the Playway Evening Draw, 5, the symbol Dog. The winning numbers for the Daily Pick 3 Midday Draw, 0, 3, and 1. The winning numbers for the Daily Pick 3 Evening Draw, 8, 9, and 1. The winning numbers for the Daily Cash 4 Midday Draw, 8, 6, 9, and 4. The winning numbers for the Daily Cash 4 Evening Draw, 2, 7, 6, and 3. The lotto results for Monday, 15th November 2021 are as follows: 3, 7, 22, 27, and 28. The numbers again: 3, 7, 22, 27, and 28. And the free ticket letter was H as in happy. There was 76 match 3 winners paying $10 and no match 4 winners. The current estimated lotto jackpot is now $100,000. So that's the results from draws conducted on Monday, 15th November by the National Lotteries Authority. And this is where we say goodbye for this morning. It was a pleasure having you here with us this morning. Rise and shine. We will be back here with you on Thursday, God's will. When we do this again, all things remaining the same. I say thank you to the team, Tanya, Chad, Kishan, for another successful program. We do hope that our audiences do appreciate and you did enjoy today's program. It is our hope that we can continue to be a platform where we share information. We can share the things that you need to take you by, the things that you need to know, the things that would help you be a better person and also share with you the plans of all our public officers as they all prepare for what is an upcoming election cycle. So this is where I say goodbye for this morning. I wish everyone the best. Remember, we are still living within the pandemic. Please be responsible. Don't become complacent. Though restrictions and so are relaxed somewhat, let's still be responsible. Remember, our safety is our responsibility. It's a personal responsibility in this case. All the policies, the protocols will all be in place. But if we don't practice them, at the end of the day, we will not get our desired results. So let us play our part in this process. Do what we need to do. Do what we need to do to ensure that we are safe. So until Thursday, God's will, I'm your host, Jocelyn Crosby, wishing everyone a wonderful day. Please be safe, and thank you again for being here with us today.
Rise and shine.
We support you at every stage of your life.
For business.
For your education.
For your financial freedom.
For that new ride.
Upgrade your life with the Communal. Contact us today.
Spare your pocket, spare the earth, always act when let you come first. Save energy, save a dime, reduce your wattage and reduce your time. When you use appliances, make sure you buy energy efficient every time. Spare your pocket, spare the earth, always act when let you come first. Spare your pocket, spare the earth, always act when let you come first.
Despite the situation we now face, one thing is for certain. We will get through this together. As much as we are a part of your community, you are a part of who we are. Let's take care of each other during this time, as we always do. And soon, we know that with the dawn of that new day, all of this will be over, and our land will once again be healed. In the meantime, stay safe. Know that we're here for you. Courts, bringing value home.
I think we can all do more, and certainly that includes the president. But that includes everyone that benefits from it, whether they voted for this bill or not.
Is he not explaining it well enough?
I think it's hard to get through the muddle of the media in today's day and age, and that may be a little tough for someone like President Biden, who's used to just straight talk. But there's a lot of noise out there. We have to cut through the noise and tell the American people what this is going to do for their pocketbooks, what it's going to do for their job opportunities, and what it's going to do for their ability to live a better life. And I think when people hear this, over the course of time, we'll see those numbers change. And ultimately, I think when you're in leadership, you don't do things based on the polls. You can't lead with an ear to the ground and a finger to the wind. You do it because it's what's right, and that is what President Biden and Vice President Harris and the entire administration have done. Now it's up to us to carry that message out to the communities across this country, and I believe you'll see a different response.
What's the possibility that the priorities of some Americans, maybe many Americans, have changed since President Biden began working on this, whether it was the $1.9 trillion relief bill, whether it was the infrastructure bill that the work was begun last spring? Look, in the summer we had Delta, now we have inflation. What's the possibility Americans just care more about different things that they don't necessarily see as much work being done on?
Well, first of all, I think if you ask the average American what inflation is, they couldn't tell you. I think you have to let them
inflation?
know that.
You don't think they can tell you what inflation is?
I don't think the average American could tell you what inflation is.
I think they can tell you. I think that may be the one thing that most people can tell you is I'm paying more for gas. That's inflation.
Listen, I will agree with that. They can tell you what they're paying for milk. They can tell you what they're paying for bread and eggs at the grocery store and gas. But when you talk about what's in this bill and you talk about the level that's being put in for public